Hey guys, it's me once again. So, I haven't done one of these in a while. I'm going to do a little rant video. No, it's not against the horror community. Um, it's about life, actually, about things in life, particularly customer service these days. And I'm going to mainly focus on pretty much my expertise of the fast food industry or the restaurant industry. I'm not going to name particular companies. I'm just going to go on record and say that these have been some of my experiences and the complaints I've heard from several people. And I'm not just talking a few, several people. And when you hear the word customer service, you automatically think of the people you deal with when you go into these restaurants. You know, the cashier, the manager, uh, the maybe some employees that made your sandwich wrong, and I think it goes a lot deeper than just that. You know, I always hear, well, they have kids that work there, you gotta cut them some slack, and I agree to a point. Let me break it down a little bit. So I'm not gonna place, obviously I'm not gonna place all the blame on just the the employees, but I'm gonna start there. So, when you get hired at a place, you know, first of all, it's up to the manager to interview these people properly. And what I mean properly is you don't just hire somebody because they filled out an application. No, I've been a manager. I didn't hire everybody that came in. Our company, when I worked for the company that, like I said, I'm not naming names. We used to have a system where the person filling out the application had kind of a test. It wasn't like a multiplication or addition or anything. It was common sense questions. Like example, if a customer complains that their sandwich was had too much mayonnaise on it, do you what? A, do you ask them to take it off themselves? B, throw it at them. C, uh, make them a new one, or D, yell at them. Some stuff like that. Like, I'm being a little ridiculous, obviously, but it was kind of like the test in school where there was obviously one or two correct answers, and then the other two were ridiculous. And some of the scores that we would get from these tests it would basically grade them by their answer. And if I remember correctly, it would rate you on a 0 through 5. Anything above like anything 4 or above was uh have them come in for an interview. A 3 or above was um it's up to you basically if you want to interview this person. Anything 2.5 or lower was do not call for interview. Now, of course, there were some managers in our district that if they were really hard up for employees, they would ask them for an interview. But of course, we wouldn't always hire these people. And even the ones that did score high, you know, during the interview process, if they came in looking lackluster, like they were not enthused, if they were giving simple answers, yes, no, not elaborating, I still wouldn't hire them, even though they scored great. So it all starts with the interview process. You can't, and I don't care how desperate you are for employees, you can't just hire anybody. You have to hire smartly. So So I place some blame there, because you're hiring anybody, so that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a 0 through 5 of an employee. It's a crapshoot. Now you ask them to come in, watch your training videos. Now, training videos are fine, but it's actually hands-on training that helps these employees get better. And I'm not just talking about how to run a register. I'm not talking about how just to flip a burger. I'm talking about care, respect, customer service abilities, how to talk to customers, how to greet customers when you're doing burgers or chicken or drive-through, proper etiquette when it comes to especially burgers, making sure you're wearing gloves. In a lot of these places, they spend a day, maybe two, on training methods. And then they kind of just say, well, there you go. You're all set now. No. The places I've been fortunate enough to be a manager at, I've been given the tools to properly train people. You spend like a week, and sometimes even more, with somebody, whether it be me or my an assistant manager or someone who is fully trained, especially dealing with customers. Because as much as sometimes customers are at fault too, and yes, I'm going to trigger some people. Customers can be at fault for how an employee reacts to something, especially an untrained employee. Yes, employees are supposed to restrain themselves. Totally get it. I'm 100% in agreement. And I've dealt with some customers over the years that if I wasn't on the clock, it'd be a different story. But when you put on that uniform, the customer is mostly right. And I'm going to say mostly. The way they treat you, yeah, it's not right at all. But the employee is the customer is the one that puts money in our pockets. And I know some people out there, it's not worth that much. And I'll come back to that in a second, but in a way, you're right. It's not worth that much because this is going to get me to the next part of what's wrong with customer service is the managers that hire these people are not paying attention to what these kids are doing. And I'm not saying that they have to watch them 24 hours a day. No. But there should be a middleman. There should be a manager watching and a manager kind of staying close to that person and seeing how this person reacts to certain situations, and then kind of intervening when it needs to be. Because the best training is obviously one that you can visualize. So you can't just throw an employee out there and expect them to handle everything on their third day of working. You can't. So there should be that, like a person nearby to kind of intervene if the need comes there. Also, I'm going to touch on cellular phones. When I got into this business, we didn't have cell phones. I've been doing, and I can speak on all this too. I've been doing this for over 30 years, and that's why I'm not doing it anymore, because of the lack of training, the lack of pride that these jobs don't have. Cell phones have no place at a workplace. I hear you right now. I hear people saying, well, what if there's an emergency? Does your store not have a phone? If there's an emergency, that's where they call. They call your manager and say, hey, I need to talk to so and so because their mother's in the hospital. I need to talk to so and so because blah, blah, blah. But these kids are on their phones and no one does anything about it. And I know in the training videos, they always talk about cellular use. But these training videos are pretty much useless because not even the managers pay attention to it. Not the area managers don't pay any attention to it. Because I see it every single time I'm in a restaurant. Some kid is laughing, some kid is watching Instagram videos. And the language. And this goes back to training. So, like I said, I'm not blaming the employees. Training should also come down to how to speak when you're at work, how you should act at a work environment. So this goes back to training. So you might think I'm coming down on the cashiers. I'm not. I'm coming down on how they were trained, and I'm also coming down on them a little bit with common sense. You know, as a customer of a place, when I walk into a place, I expect to be treated a certain way. So when you get hired at this place, you should be doing the same thing, treating people how you would want to be treated yourself. So, yes, a little blame goes on the employee, but also a majority of it goes on their training because they were not trained properly to act accordingly. I'm going to delve a little bit higher now. I'm going to attack some of the corporate places. And what you're probably saying, what does corporate have to do with customer service? Corporate has a lot to do with customer service. I've been in this business long enough to know that they allocate hours to these businesses. You have a certain amount of hours to use for the day. You have a certain amount of hours to use for the week. And these are multi-billion-dollar corporations who give them little leeway to have a fully staffed crew. So in a strange way, a lot of all this can bottle down to corporate. So and what I mean by that is when they allocate hours, they say you have a certain amount of hours to work for, I'm going to say Friday. So when the manager's making up the schedule, they schedule employee 1 8 hours, employee 2 6 hours, employee 3 6 hours, and so on and so forth. But once they get to that allocated hours, they have to stop. So, and that accounts for not just their regular work days, but if you live in a city or a surrounding town that has kind of events, sporting events, concert events, town events, they don't give you extra hours allocated for those events. So during these busy days, these event days, these restaurants are working with the same amount of allocated hours as they would on any other day. So, of course, you're going to have stressed employees. And what does stressed employees equal? Bad customer service. And it's not of their fault. Right there, like I said, I'm not placing all the blame on just the managing training. I'm not placing the blame on just an employee's attitude. I am placing blame also on allocated hours given to by corporate for these restaurants. Trust me, like I said, I started in the restaurant business when I was 17 years old. Sorry, 16. And I left it last year at 50 years old. So 34 years of training I've had at this. I've been a regular employee. I've been just a dishwasher. I've been assistant manager, shift manager, general manager, area manager. I know what I'm talking about. Now, I've had the privilege of working for some great owners that have given me the power to to bring extra people in if I knew there was an event, to call people in if the day was busier than normal. And I have two owners on my friends list that know who I'm talking to. And I thank you for that because that extra that extra incentive of having another employee or two, or even them at my disposal. Yes, I would call the owners and say, hey, I need you guys to come in. And guess what? They would come in. So I've been blessed to work for people like that, so that we didn't run into those conflicts of being shorthanded, being stressed. And we had a policy about phones. We had a policy of training people extra. Shit, I would train half of them. I'm going to tell you, the one particular business I'm talking about right now, I hired the employee who now runs that particular business. He's the general manager now. Because I was given that authority to say, yes, I'm going to hire this person. No, I'm not going to hire that person. Yes, I'm going to train this person for 7 to 14 days. Me or my assistant or a shift manager would make that determination when that person is ready. And they would come to me and say, Rob, that person is doing really good, but I think they could use maybe a couple more days. Great. So on my next week's schedule, I would schedule another person because a trainee is not considered a ready employee yet, to me, in my eyes. So, not that any of these major restaurants are going to care my opinion, but if you're a person ready to get into the industry, don't be afraid to ask for some more help. Don't be afraid, because they can't hold that against you. They can't hold that against you that you want more training. Don't go out there with blinders on, because they just set you up for failure. Now, that's all I really want to say, because I've been, like I said, when I started going to restaurants as a kid, I remember my first experience. It was like 1980, 1981. I went to a McDonald's. I was probably there before, but this is the earliest I can remember. And yes, I'll use a business because this is past tense. I went to McDonald's. You're probably saying, what's the big deal about McDonald's? Back in those days, there was so much pride in being employed that people were happy to see you. You walked in and people greeted you with smiles. Not just the person at the register. You would have everybody, welcome McDonald's. And you were blown away by like how much people were happy that you were there. They take your order. You go and get. You would go sit down, find a table. By the time you went back, they were bringing your food out to you. They all wore their uniforms proudly. They always displayed their names. They always had smiles on their faces. Now, whether or not that they smiled when they got back, that was irrelevant to me. Presentation is everything. If you and your family walk into a restaurant and the kid or the adult or the manager kind of rolls their eyes at you, or they shrug shoulders, it's going to give me a bad aura about eating here. And places that have waitresses, whoever is seating you is usually not your waitress. You know, let me take you to your table. Teresa will be your server today. I'm using fictional names. Now, if this person doesn't have a great attitude already, my experience is already bad. Now, Teresa walks over, and now she has to make up for the lackluster entrance that you just got. But she might not know it either. So hopefully Teresa is regularly a great greeter. A great, hi, can I start you off with some drinks? Because already, and you can't blame your waitress for how you are seated, obviously. But in a lot of people's minds, that already starts coming into your head. My point here is, people, be happy you have a job. Be happy that, yeah, maybe this job isn't the gravy job you wanted. But the only way you're going to get any kind of response is by having a positive attitude, have great greetings, give a perfect customer service day to this person. Because smiling at somebody helps their day too. Trust me. We were all going around a couple years ago. Oh, we want $15, we want $20 an hour for working in fast food restaurants. And while I agree, a lot of them are very underpaid. But a lot of the estates have come around and given these people what they wanted. But now you have to earn it. You're not owed this new wage. You have to earn it. So, to the hiring managers out there, to the training methods, to the employees themselves, and to corporate, smarten up. You guys are multi-billion-dollar corporations. Allocate more hours. Put more effort into training. Don't just throw somebody out there, and don't just hire anybody. Because when you hire anybody, that's the kind of customer service you're going to get. Any kind of customer service. So with that said, much love, peace, harmony. Hey, I'm eager to hear you guys positive comments, negative comments, because like I said, 34 years in the industry, I've seen it all, I've heard it all. You know what? Every single customer still respected me because I respected them. Much love.